Hey.
wait.
Thank you, Grace.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna now send the link to Cheryl. And I'm going to, let's see if I can find it on my phone.
Oh, Cheryl didn't get the link?
Well, you know she did, but she's just not near as organized as everybody. Oh, wait,
Well-
are we recorded already?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Then we will not make snarky comments. Damn, I mean, darn. This is gonna, yeah.
Spicy. It's a spicy advocacy meeting.
They always are.
Here we go.
All right, so I need to get this link. Oh, I know where to find it from because it's in several places. It's not, it's not good for me on the public calendar, but it's on the it's on our calendar. So
Okay.
Fairfax. I'm gonna send this.
There's Subi.
Hello.
Hey, how
Oh,
are
good.
you?
Oh, good.
Hi. I made it.
Yes.
Well done. I was just gonna see if I could pull that up so I could. Now I don't have to do it for you, but let me get it right for our president, because she's with our chairman, because she's coming in.
Yeah. We're already recording, Subi, just so you know. We're on our good behavior. We've already made a couple missteps, but
All right.
I've already used some bad language.
Which is recorded for posterity.
there you go. There you go. 50 years from now, they're going to say salty and stunts.
Okay, so the Teams meeting. Whoa, can I do this? Yes. Copy.
I was going to say, well, Cheryl's here.
Did you make it, Cheryl? Oh, good. I was just getting the darn link to you.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate that. And Subi also, I think, helped get it done. And thank you also,
Okay.
Kira, who did it and sent it off. Yeah,
No, it was
did
great.
I miss an email? Was I just woefully ignorant somehow?
I was going to say it. Denise sent it out.
Now,
Did she?
Denise or Grace, one of them.
I think
Oh, Grace. I'm
So-
sorry, Grace. I misidentified you with
Oh,
somebody
you
else.
know what? But Denise's message does not have Cheryl on it. So
Well, that would explain why.
Oh my God, yes. So,
Yep.
so we're being recorded, we hear. Someone started recording and transcribing, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Denise is here, her initials are sitting there, but she's she's just making sure the meeting stays open.
Okay.
If we need her, we'd have to really scream and maybe
I think
call.
she muted it, so even
Maybe we'd have
screaming
to
won't help.
phone her, and so we've got, I think, let's see, how many are we for a quorum? We are officially in this committee. We don't count you, I don't think, Cheryl. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the committee. And there are 1, 2, we're good. We've got a nice turnout. So it's just more than half is what I'm saying, is I can't remember the real rules.
Did-
I'm sorry.
I
I
think
just
that's right.
I saw the transcript and did you need me?
No, oh, no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna walk out of the room now.
is this like, let's not say Denise anymore, she who must not be named.
I'm walking. Okay, walking away.
We'll call
Have a
for
good
you.
meeting. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to kick off. I might have to get rid of the dog first. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:09, and we're going to start with the audibility of members' voices. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically. Red, I'm on a call. We're being recorded for forever. The History Commission needs to make certain findings for the record to evidence our compliance with all applicable laws. These motions address this compliance. First, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each board committee member participating in this meeting to state your name and your location. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure you can hear each of your colleagues. Cheryl Repetti.
I am Cheryl Repetti. I'm here in Centerville representing Sully District.
Lynn Garvey Hodge. She does not intend to come tonight. She's got a lot of other things, including this minor conference she's putting together. Ann
Which
Stunts. What?
No, go ahead, sir.
I'm obviously here in Hunter Mill District. Carol Herrick.
I'm here in McLean, Drainsville District, and you all look great.
That's just amazing you can see us. That's very cool. Subi Mehdi.
Subi Mehdi, McLean, Drainsville District.
Tammy Manorino.
Tammy Manorino, Mount Vernon District.
And Barbara Peters.
Barbara Peters, Mason District.
And then I think from terms of county staff, we have Grace Davenport. Hi, Grace.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for being here tonight. And then, and Denise is just making sure the meeting's over. So I'm handing the gavel over to, I don't really have I think Barbara Peters looks like she wants it. Over to Barbara Peters, so I can make a motion. I move that the History Commission certify for the record that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
I second the motion.
Tammy. And
All in favor?
all in favor, say.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Second, I move that the History Commission certify the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this commission and the public to physically attend this meeting in person, and the usual procedures cannot be implemented safely or practically. As a result, I further move that the Fairfax County History Commission Advocacy Committee conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line. And then the public may access this meeting by calling 1-571-429-5982, event number 359-705-544 half mark. The motion, is there a second?
Oh, I second the motion.
Was that Tammy again?
Again, I like to second.
Okay, so that's Tammy.
I'll second it then, Herrick.
You guys,
Don't fight me.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Finally, I move that the History Commission Committee of the History Commission certify that the matters on its agenda today relate to the COVID-19 emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required and necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the History Commission's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. There a second?
Second.
All right, I think Carol won. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye. Oh yeah, did we do that? Yes.
Yes.
Now to get started. Now we're done.
No, I have to give you the gavel back.
And back. And thank you, Barbara. That was key. So I don't remember that we ever blessed the meeting minutes and notes from last July. So we could do that as a piece of business right now. They've already been
Bless is the word you use?
If we'd like to accept them as distributed in a couple of ways, but I didn't remember to distribute them ahead of time to this meeting, so it might be that you're not prepared to
Approved.
approve them. You got me. So that was the first order of business once we got through the this administrative stuff that I was going to ask you about.
I'm actually comfortable approving them as they were
They're
written.
okay. They really weren't, as I look over them, they were not minutes. They were just like all kinds of notes about everything we
Summary.
said. So I think they're useful and they're not embarrassing. So I would entertain a motion to accept them formally.
I move that we accept the July of 2021 minutes as written.
And I will second that.
So that was Tammy and who?
Barbara,
Barbara?
You. And all in favor or any discussion first? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Good, thank you. All right, so every time we have a meeting of this group, for years and years, we spend the first half hour defining it. So stop it. We're going to acknowledge that there are two threads to what we always talk about. One being advocacy regarding issues and how we could make a difference in advising our supervisors and just getting some programmatic changes or changes in the code or things like that would maybe perhaps give us more tools. So I'd like to start with that in a bit of a brainstorming of what issues, and this is why it was Subi's idea, I think, to invite Cheryl and talk about if you have some legacy ideas for your term or some specific things that you're excited about forwarding. So that's the advocacy part. And then in my notes, I then switch over to what Tammy sent us earlier in October, which was a nice agenda of ways to reach out in more of a PR way, the monthly news flash, the press releases, the newsletter, and I love that, history table at farmers markets. So we'll get to that because I think it's a lot of good ideas. But if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to start with advocacy, which is, as we looked up at some point, the act of speaking on behalf of or in support of something in order to make a change. You know, I mean, and we've thrown out a lot. I mean, I threw out a lot of ideas, but you know, reading back over the minutes, I realized I hadn't really thought about, Barbara, the points you made at the last meeting about advocating for people who can't advocate for themselves. People
Well,
like,
and I've had two experiences in the last 2 months that just absolutely speak to the fact that we've got to do a better job letting people in this county know that we exist, the kinds of things that we do. I mean, one of them was the Justice Park event, to which we should have been a participant, not a spectator. You know, and I mean, the fact of the matter is that this whole program was put together without using the resources of the county in any way. And I thought that was pathetic. I mean, Cheryl directed the head of that group to the Virginia room. But I mean, Cheryl and I were invited, which when I got there, we shouldn't have been invited. We should have been there presenting who we were. And I think somehow we have to get that message out that we're available, that we have something to offer, and that people should want us participating, not just observing what they're doing. And then, of course,
was that Park Authority?
it was Park Authority, and the NAACP, and it was a rededication of the park under a new name. But I mean, it was just, I mean,
was
I'm glad I wasn't
re-
sitting there in the hot sun on the black asphalt, on a very, very hot Saturday, but we should have been.
It was a rededication of the park under a new name?
Yes.
Oh, somehow I missed that.
Well, Justice Park wasn't its name. It was renamed Justice Park because they had renamed the high school
yeah.
Right.
across the street. And so, I mean, all of the land for both of those had come from the original farms, that were there. So, I mean, it was being renamed, but it was an excuse, basically, for, a presentation of Black injustice,
Mhm.
which is what really happened. But I mean, I was just bothered by the fact that, I showed up and went around introducing myself and realized very quickly that we should have had one of the tables and hadn't been invited to do so.
Okay, that's a great point, and I'm glad you have that specific example. Your next one's going to be even worse.
After several years of work on the James Lee marker, the History Commission was pretty much sidelined in the whole presentation and celebration and dedication, or whatever you want to call it, unveiling of that marker. And, there were a lot of kudos all the way around, and sort of as a, aside, the History Commission got mentioned, but just barely. And so, I mean, I just feel like, we are not getting the kind of attention even within the county agencies, because that was Neighborhood and Community Services. So I mean, these two events were Park Authority and Neighborhood and Community Services. And, we were just kind of, oh, and then there's those people.
So I was, even when the History Commission was named, it was really not the History Commission. I mean, the reason this one is galling is because it's a History Commission marker. That's just never happened. That's just that I could be wrong. It could
Well, and by a supervisor, admittedly a young new supervisor.
But she knows that we exist. She like put us to work last year. She
Yes.
thanked Barbara and she thanked Mary very nicely, but it was still more you guys as individuals. I mean, she thanked you very well. This wouldn't have happened without you too. She said that, but it wasn't, the History Commission was not named anywhere in the program.
And yet they handed out at this event these magnets that were, I was there.
Yes.
And it was in the shape of our marker.
I think that's copyright infringement.
So, I mean, yeah, they know who we are. They know who paid for half the marker and did most of the labor, but yet the recognition of who the History Commission is, what they're there for, what they do was, just passed them on by.
Right.
Well,
and I think there are two things that kind of play into that. And one of them is, that monthly news flash that I was talking about, that, I think we all ought to be doing that. We should probably have the same top bullets of what the History Commission has accomplished in the month, but then we fill in, what did you as a History Commissioner do this month? And you can fill in a bullet or two for ourselves. Like this month I worked on the Fort Belvoir renaming, that's my bullet for the month. And sending that email to the supervisor's staff without fail every single month. We all ought to be doing that. And then the second thing is, and this is controversial or whatever, but we're 25 minutes in, so anybody who's listened this long deserves a little controversy. I am of the opinion that the annual report ought to be under this committee. And we have
Oh,
not
my.
produced an annual report in 2 years. 2
We
years.
we missed 19 and 20.
So we are doing ourselves a grand disservice by not producing an annual report and taking that opportunity to be in front of the History Commission and advertise what we are doing for them. And so that is my controversial thought for the
No,
day.
and while I'm not excited about taking on the labor involved, I absolutely agree. I mean, our annual report has been nothing more than a cut and paste with a few name changes
Right.
for
And
years.
it doesn't need to be that long. It does not need to
It
be
does
that long.
not need to be that long.
It needs to be a
focus
summary
on
of
what
those
we're
monthly
doing.
news flashes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
here's what we did in 2020. You know,
Yes.
here it is. Here are our accomplishments.
I think that would be very refreshing. I did it's supposed to be done by the vice chair.
Vice chair. Yeah.
It's the responsibility of the vice chair.
That's a lot for one person.
When Carol was chair, I was vice. So I did it for those 3 years. And I did just cut and paste. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure I did a brilliant job of it, but
Oops, sorry.
but I mean, but I wasn't making changes. I was just kind of put my head down and updated it. And then the previous vice chair delegated it to Elise. And I think it's a great idea I mean, I do hate to take on new jobs for this committee, but maybe the thing should be that the vice chair and this committee do it so that it is still, I forget if it's actually in the bylaws. I just don't remember.
I mean, did anybody else look at what the library produced last year for an annual report?
Yes, I looked at it in detail. Now that's probably more glitzy than we need
Little
to be.
more glitzy and slick than I think we are capable of producing.
Well, plus I think we don't need to be that way.
But we don't need the drone on that we produce as an annual report, which is absolutely uninformative and useless. And I don't imagine anybody reads it.
Yeah. It's really, what have we done for them?
Yeah, what it needs is an executive summary if you're going to keep that format, so that you really only have to look at the back if you want to look up Cheryl's bio, or you want to look up, wait, what's the budget again?
Sure.
There's a lot of good information in there, but it is just an update and an executive summary. Even 3 pages, bullet points would be a wonderful.
Well, if we've got a monthly, email we're sending out, I mean, you have got all of that. All you need to do is grab it together and
yeah. How many new markers do we have? How many new inventory sites do we have? How many inventory sites were demolished over the year? Just what's happened in the world of Fairfax County history over the year.
Yeah.
Our annual report has not shared that kind of information at all.
And you find that when you're making the when you're making the report to the Board of Supervisors, that's where you hit the highlights. You don't read your annual report because it, as you say, it's dull and it repeats a lot. It's time for an update. It has served its purpose the way it is, and I think your point.
Is it required?
No, I was just looking at the, oops. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I was just looking at the bylaws, and I do not see the annual report specified in the bylaws.
Yeah, I'm not it either, but it's so we view it as a PR piece that has what we want in it, and that's firmly in the realm of this committee. I just hate to take it away from who's your vice chair? Yeah.
Lynn, good. But at least volunteered to do it for Lynn this year as well, because
Well,
Yeah.
that's only works if she'll do it.
Right.
She says she'll do it, but then fails
Yeah.
to produce it.
No,
Um,
no, it
and
was a tough, it was a tough year. Be okay about that. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
we should have it, but it was a tough year.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Carol. This is Carol. Maybe when Cheryl writes her report, she could list all these things that Tammy's talking about. We did this, and this, and do it that way for this year.
You mean when she gives the oral part?
No, I mean, I remember writing what we did.
Oh, yeah, we do a little short, yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
and so Cheryl could maybe go over that and list those things in that. And of course, then when we give the report before the supervisors, we would list them. But as long as
Unless it's gotta be me, Carol, because it's my year from the year before.
somebody.
Well, yeah,
no, but
I'm approaching the end
Have
of
to
my
summarize 2
first
years.
year. We're
My
kind of
first-
behind on the
Yeah,
report.
my
So yeah,
as chair, it was Gretchen who gave the report. So we just have to remember, we'll get it right. It's whatever it is, whatever we want it to be.
Well, I'm saying as long as Elise is still going to do it for Lynn, maybe try and, do some bullet points this year, and then I guess we're talking of changing it the following year.
Well, since it's not, I guess we could do that. You could either have an update by Elise or a bit of an overhaul later.
Have you already done the presentation to the board this year?
No, we didn't
No.
do it last year either. It was supposed to be scheduled and then they, everything stopped.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah, I
right. They
haven't
didn't
heard.
meet in person until this summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were supposed, and it was interesting. They didn't want us, let me try to remember it. They didn't want us to give the report in the same way that for last year when they first talked to us about it. They wanted us to give it to maybe the land use committee or something, which I think they're all on anyway. But it was going to be a slightly different, more of a conversation and less of a us just presenting this piece. They wanted to they expressed that they wanted to have more of a conversation.
Well, I think that's a much better idea because I think, it's very artificial to have you stand up and give your 5 minutes in front of the Board of Supervisors. And, it is not useful, I don't think, to them or to us. I think a conversation makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
May I
To be
just
fair, we do get questions. It is a conversation. It's just a very fraught one because they ask questions.
Yeah. May I just intervene here for a second? I don't mean this to come out as bashing someone, but I think if someone volunteers to do something, they should just do it. I find it appalling that someone takes a responsibility and doesn't follow through. Having said that, I don't know if any deadline was set for this task. So I think anytime a task is given out, there should be a deadline. So we hold people accountable to completing it. So that's one point. The other point is, even if it is assigned to a committee, it will not get done unless someone is assigned the pen.
Yes.
We don't write by committee. Someone has to take the lead, at least prepare a draft, then it can go to a committee. So it goes back to the question of, Elise or Tammy or anybody. It has to be an individual stepping up to do it.
And it has to have a deadline.
Yes.
And it has to have a deadline.
Yeah.
And in fairness to
got overshot.
Yeah, in fairness to Elise, I haven't been pushing it, and I haven't written. Well, I'm not. We're doing an annual report. Are our annual reports calendar years or are they fiscal years?
Calendar.
Calendar year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't written up anything
I
for this
say
calendar year yet.
calendar.
I think
Cheryl,
it's fiscal.
yeah, Cheryl, just a second. So my question is, which comes first, your write-up
I
or
don't
that
know.
write-up? So
I don't know.
in my humble view, I think the annual report needs to come first, and then we glean out certain points from there for your presentation.
Oh,
Okay,
yes,
so you,
yes. No,
you start from the big and winnow it down.
yeah,
You-
no, there's a section that the chair writes that I have not, haven't
But
even
again,
thought
that
of.
might be me, Cheryl. That might
Yeah,
be me.
that's what I'm trying to figure out, which
We'll go
year.
back and look at that. In the meantime, for going forward, we have to decide if this is the year to make a big shakeup. Probably not, because it's more important that it get out in some fashion. I mean, if we're going to recommend an overhaul, it seems to me we would decide for next year and then spend the rest of this year making sure that we get it done.
So normally, like the 2019 report,
is always presented in the summer of 20. And
Of
so,
20.
yeah.
and then
And then
2020 should have been.
should have been
this.
presented in the,
So we have to both cover those 2 years and then in just a couple of months start to get our 2021 report ready for the summer
Of
of
2020.
yeah. So, I mean, because it is one of those things that you can work on. I'm trying to think of the only thing that doesn't have a calendar year, of course, is the treasurer's stuff, the budget and the cash flows. But that's fine. We just know how how the financial year goes. And
So I would urge us to get those 2 done by December so
Yeah.
that we can then tackle 2021 all caught up. I mean, I really feel like in whatever form, we need to get those done by December just to clear them.
you know what's tempting to me? I don't know what you think about this. It's tempting to me to do because of the COVID, to do a double year, 1920. One
Mhm.
document. We can
Makes sense.
Yeah.
we can cover 2 years.
I think
And
that's fine.
it'll look a little different. It'll have 2 different sets of numbers maybe. And we can have highlights of each year maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think it's a plan.
Yeah. I think sorry, I just want, I answered earlier about the bylaws the annual report not being necessary. It's not in our bylaws, but I think we do have to submit one, don't we, Anne, as part of our budget?
Yeah, I think
Protocol.
that is why it gets done.
Yeah,
We do, but there's such different time frames. The
I know.
budget is
Yeah.
due now, and have you gotten a letter from Eric, somebody yet?
Yes, I think there was a letter. I think Denise just sent Elise a reminder about
Yeah,
that just
and
a few months,
money comes
a week or
July
two back.
1.
Yeah. So, let me just, sorry.
Can-
You guys keep talking. I'm getting rid of the dog.
Is that your dog? I thought there was something wrong with my headset.
May I just add one more thing, and it's that I wonder, maybe it's in all of your heads or all of the committee chairs' heads, but is there an overarching calendar for each year where major things are due? There are, like the budget, like the annual report, things that are statutory in nature, okay, that we must take care of. And then there are committee related things, and some of the committee related things are mandated by the supervisors. Some are things that we are doing on our own, I guess. But I feel like there's very little accountability.
But I think Subi, there's not very many dates. I think the dates should be like you say, the annual report, the money. We know the annual report, it's a moving target depending on when we always make sure it's done a month before we've scheduled the Board of Supervisors, and they are all over the place when they see us. So,
But
yes,
part
that
of,
could be a
our
fixed-
budget, Ann, isn't, I mean, don't we have a date by which we have to make our request?
Yeah, that's in the fall. So that's another date certain. And then we know the history conference and the awards have deadlines. But I think a lot of what we do is react to stuff rather than have ongoing schedules. It would be useful to put together our calendar of what's required when. It's a good point.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, just the fact that you are having to explain it now means it doesn't exist somewhere. And I
Well,
think,
yeah, it's kind of, we prepare the budget when we're asked to, but we happen to know it's in September and October. Yeah.
yeah,
But there are lots of people who just don't need to know that. The people who need to know that are the chairman and the budget and the treasurer.
And the treasurer.
So, no, but it's a very, very good
I
point.
don't understand why people don't need to know that, because the committees are providing input into the budget. Committees are providing input into the annual report. So how can we not know?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the budget hasn't changed in all the years I've been on the commission. I mean, we've
we
gotten
don't-
the exact same amount of money, and it doesn't matter what we submit or say. We're lucky we just still get the same amount of money.
Yeah, there's not a lot of input back and forth for some of this. You'd be surprised. So,
Yeah, I mean, in the scale of a $4 billion, whatever, $4 billion budget, we're very small, so they don't really pay that much attention to us.
I mean, one of my ideas, and I think I had mentioned it to Cheryl once, is that we have a clerk, right, who does our minutes. And can we expand that scope of work for the clerk to then do a draft annual report? So that's a paid job. Then the person has to do it because all the commissioners are doing multiple things, have multiple commitments, and then it gets, kicked down the path. And
I think,
anyway,
what would help maybe in this, and it's one of my questions for the advocacy half of the conversation is, do we want to push? Not that we would get it right off the bat, but would we rather have staff than a liaison? We would get a lot more work out of a staff person who's staff to the History Commission as opposed to liaison, because Denise was just very limited in the time she had to spend for us. Whereas as staff to the ARB, for example, they do the budget request. For all I know, they did the annual report. They don't always do annual reports.
So why have we been, with a liaison rather than a staff person?
I think it's money. It's just part of what the county's willing to give us. And so far, it's kind of like, you guys, I'm just going to read to you. Can I read you the Blake Edwards comment that I sent you, Barbara Nafe, and I think I sent it to you, Cheryl. This is one of the comments that a Bull Run Civil War Roundtable guy, who's very nice fellow, Blake Myers, wrote in commenting to the Confederate Names Task Force. And he goes, he was talking about how wouldn't it be great if Fairfax County followed the example of Prince William County and Shenandoah Valley battlefields, who are developing African American history trails, complete with site documentation, historical markers, trail maps, blah, blah. He goes, here's what the part I bolded. Fairfax County has an organizational impediment in this functional area. Nowhere in the county's organizational structure is there an organization with a primary responsibility of history and historic preservation. Yes, that Fairfax County History Commission exists and maintains the inventory of historic sites, but its role is advisory. It's composed of volunteers appointed by the supervisors. It has no full-time members or staff, minimal authority, and minimal funding. This organizational shortfall in a county so rich in Native American history, colonial and Revolutionary War history, African American history, Civil War and Reconstruction history, civil rights history, Cold War history, etc., is appalling, but it is a shortfall that could be remedied. So a baby step would be trying to get a staff person
Okay.
to work with us who would have more time.
One of the other things on the trip I took to France in August, I mean, I spent a lot of time in medieval towns and cobblestone streets and looking at a lot of historic buildings. And in one of the towns I was in, I asked the guide that we had how, in God's name, they were able to fund the preservation of their history. Because I mean, some of these were the whole town was historic.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman smiled and she said, well, the French lottery, I mean, we get, I don't know, I can't remember now whether it was 1% or 2% of whatever the proceeds of the annual lottery are, and that goes to historic preservation, and I thought, well, okay, well, there you go. I mean, we have no funds, no guarantee of funds, no expectation of funds. Is it any wonder that we have so much trouble preserving anything?
Yes,
Right.
but my point is, we are given the opportunity to make a budget request. If we say we will never get the money, we'll never get the money. But don't we have to make a evidence-based budget request that we then advocate for? Right?
Yeah,
Every year when the president submits budget to the Congress, he goes to Congress and explains his request, and then there are multiple back and forth. So if we have like a hands up in the air and say we'll never get it, this has always been the same, what's the point? We'll be where we are.
Well, that's
I
why
agree
we have
wholeheartedly.
what I like is that's why we have an advocacy committee. We're identifying, we don't advocate for ourselves. That's why we just don't.
Right.
We
And
just
that's
don't. And we're really defining all the places where we don't advocate for ourselves. Sorry, Tammy, did I interrupt you?
no, I'm just saying I completely agree. And that's, we're not taking advantage of, having that annual report or presentation to the Board of Supervisors. We're not taking advantage of the ability to request budget. I mean, you think about the last couple of years and what we've done. Yeah, we had a staff person for the Confederate Names initiative, but what about the African American History Initiative? That's huge. We could use a staff person on that. Let's ask for money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, you
Cheryl,
look at even Confederate names, in Alexandria, that was done entirely by paid
Staff.
staff.
Yeah.
Not
So we're doing a lot of big
through
stuff.
the History Commission and expect them to do all the work.
Yeah.
Well, Blake's
Yeah,
comment is very right. It's very on the
I agree.
money. He stated it well. And so there's right there, we have budget issue, and we have, that's our specific line item. The staff versus liaison is in a different line item. I don't know how that works at all. I don't know how the budget process works. There's a question right there. Who can work with us and understand this? And
This is Carol. Anne, is that something you can send to us?
What?
That email?
Oh, yes, yeah, I sure can.
I'd like to see it if
Is
it's,
that
Well,
okay?
yeah,
I think you have to understand, Carol, that Anne is abstracting it from its context. So
Yes.
that was a statement that Blake made to the Confederate Names Task Force. And so the whole of it is an argument about whether or not to rename Lee Highway.
But that part of it, what I like
And
about that part,
just that bit that she read was right on target. I'd be interested in seeing that, but maybe it's
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fine. I just wanted to explain that the gist of it,
I got
it's
you.
like, I think it might be 2 pages long. I mean, it's fairly long, and it's mostly
was-
about something else.
No, the
Yeah, well-
abstract is just fine what she read, but yeah.
what I liked about it was, even though there was this whole other part, like you say, Cheryl, but this portion was saying there's a lot of things we can teach, a lot of history that we can teach in the county that we don't. And that's just been, that's certainly what we learned from doing the whole analysis of the Civil War related markers. We just thought, wow, there's so much other history of the county that we could be sharing than we do a lot of Civil War, but we don't do
Yeah.
a lot of these others. So
Yeah, and one of the things that Blake is unaware of, and maybe the rest of the commission is not all that cognizant of, is that with the marker contest, that has kind of mushroomed into something quite a bit larger, and is I think now they're calling it the African American / Black experience in
Yes.
Fairfax County.
yes,
And so, and with the public schools are creating a curriculum, basically a project-based learning device or lesson plan, to utilize our inventory, the African American history inventory that we're creating. I mean, I think for an agency that lacks all the resources that we lack, we've done, we're actually doing a lot. In some ways, perhaps we're doing too much.
And
I
getting
almost.
little credit for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was talking to Laura Wickstead today, and I said, Laura, I need a staff. I need a staff for what I'm doing right now. I've got people in the community coming to me asking me for advice on proffers, like, what history wording should we put into this display that we've agreed to have? And I mean, like, so I'm consulting on that, and then we just have a zillion things. I truly could use
Yeah.
like Martha Stewart kind of staff, like.
Yeah.
well,
And so with that marker committee, we have asked, I have specifically asked Supervisor Palchik's staff member who comes in and listens to those contest markers. I have told him point blank, there is no way we do this without without paid staff. And they can be interns hired from GMU or whatever. We have a limited money where we could potentially take our excess that we have and put it towards the end, towards next year doing this. But we can't continue to put out at this level of productivity without having paid staff.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've told them that
That's good.
point blank.
Good.
and
And
it made all
supposedly
the
they're
difference.
looking at that for us.
It made all
Yeah,
the difference for the inventory. We had
Oh yeah,
a lot of staff, and we needed every bit of it.
Yeah,
It was amazing. So if we're thinking of, we're segueing nicely to things to advocate for, and the other type of thing that now we're advocating very specifically for ourselves and supporting what we do. Are there regulatory and legal tools that we wish the county would develop that we don't have? Because we've talked about any number of things, and do we want to put that on our agenda? Sometimes it's enough just to get a supervisor to turn up an idea into a board matter, in which case it's handed over to staff to look at. And an example of that was several years ago when Gretchen and I met with then Supervisor McKay. And I think I mentioned it a little bit last time we met. And we talked about the rehab tax credit that some jurisdictions have in Virginia. And McKay was very interested. He said, whoa, that's really neat. I'll make it a board matter and we'll hand it over to legal and so that happened. It was a board matter. It was a tax incentive program for a certain age buildings. That doesn't help owners of historic homes, but it gives a developer an incentive to want to rehab an older building. That's maybe income producing. So that's an interesting idea, but it started to wallow in bureaucracy, and then COVID hit. So it has gone nowhere. But there's other things. We've seen the county do its single property HOD with River Farm. Should that be expanded to any property on the inventory? It could. Would that help? Yeah, it might. It might save stuff.
There was at least one supervisor who advocated that, at the end of the whole River Farm event, was basically saying, like, I think we should do more of these. So
good. And that's what Scott Sorrell came and talked to us about, but we really didn't take it and run with it. But then lo and behold, River Farm happened. So it's proof of concept, sort of. Although, do you have to be connected to George Washington and on the Potomac River in order to be a single property HOD, or can you just be on the inventory? Can my house be on an HOD? I don't know. We'd have to somebody's got to develop that, and that's nobody on this call.
There's one in Lee District that's about to go, and I think it was in a holding pattern because they were waiting to see what happened with River Farm. It's called Mount Aaron. Mount Aaron has been on, on the real estate market for a couple of years, and it's surrounded, by all of this land, and they're selling it off. And the house, from what I've heard, is in some ways not in great shape, but in other ways it's it's there. It stood the test of time. It's livable. People are living in it. So but yeah, so that's, nobody's paying attention to that. I keep every once in a while going, hey, Mount Aaron, but I don't know. That's another one that I think could be a historic overlay district.
That would be so that needs to be. I don't know how. I mean, if we look at each of these issues, we could divide this list up and see what it takes if we want to pursue these things and try to understand what it would take to pursue them. The one thing I spent some time this week looking at was tax abatement for historic buildings. Tax abatement, that means lower property tax on historic homes. And everybody, like with everything you ever do in Virginia, the first response when you ask about something is always, nah, we're a Dillon real estate, we can't do that. Well, all you have to do is Google Virginia counties tax abatement for historic preservation. And there's a number of counties in Virginia who are doing this. Yes. And it's just, it's real. You can do it in this state. Mm-hmm. One way or another, you can do it. Maybe they needed a special thing in Richmond, but nobody said it's happening right now. And you've said before.
But is that because we're not presenting this to the supervisors as something?
I think so.
Yeah, or asking about it. What happened to it? What happened to it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like for the supervisor McKay tax incentive thing, Gretchen or I should write a letter, make some phone calls, and say, where did it go? What's happening? That's one little sliver. Because the beauty is, once you put it in someone else's court, then it is staff doing it, as long as we don't let them forget. So then, I mean, I think we could make a nice list of each of these things that we're interested in and make a proposal to pick a supervisor, make a proposal to a supervisor that makes sense and say, we just think this would be a wonderful thing for the county to have. Would you be interested in having staff pursue it? So, and then that's when a board matter gets created and staff starts swearing because now they have a big new job to do. So, but that's how things seem to happen, or at least progress. So that's that side of things. So that I think we could just decide as a committee what our, and as chair, what some priorities are, and then try to push them forward. And that doesn't take all of us. That takes one or two of us. I mean, unless we want to divide up the issues, which is a good idea. We could be each subject experts in one or two of these things that we think that the county ought to look into. And then while we're at it, I mean, I had fun talking to the land use guy for my district last week, because I started brainstorming all these ideas with him. He's just staff to Supervisor Alcorn, but he was really interested that we were thinking about all these things. So you got to start somewhere. And if the county starts to realize that they haven't, that the History Commission is more like window dressing, so they can say that they have a rich history and they pay attention to it, or should they put some more resources toward it? It's like you say, if we're not advocating for more resources, then they're just going to keep giving us $22,000 a year and nothing else. And it's more resources in 10 different ways. So but Cheryl, one of the reasons you're here, besides we love you, is that just to think about priorities and think about, I mean, because you can't do everything. You can't, you can't go to the supervisors, maybe you can, and ask for 10 different things. But you could maybe get some progress made in a whole lot of areas, because it doesn't all have to be the same supervisor either. If you could find, my supervisor, would he be interested in one of these ideas? He might. Like I say, I don't know how to approach the budget, but somebody does. Somebody's an expert at how to work the budget process, and when do we chime in? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I mean, in terms of all of the things you have described are I think important, and it's hard to prioritize among them. I think that we do need help. I mean, Subi said something about a lack of accountability, and that is an inherent inherent in any kind of volunteer organization. And we're all, we all have other things that we're doing, and we're doing this in our spare time. And that is inherently means that we're, I mean, if something comes up at work and that's going to take precedence over what I have to do here. And so that's just the nature of being in a volunteer area, so that having paid staff associated with us. And I mean, we have had that. We've had Denise, but she, we've had this much of her time,
Right.
and she gives us more. I mean,
She does.
She does a lot of volunteer work there, but that's really inappropriate. In fact, it's illegal to ask her to do that, or to assume that she was going to do that in order to make things happen. And so we really do need to have if we're going to keep doing these things, like this marker contest is supposed to be a multi-year sort of thing, and would potentially expand right now it's focused on African American history, but potentially would expand to other groups. And there's just no way that we can take that on. And we shouldn't. And there's, in order to do some of these, to really to do the things that one of the things that's positive with One Fairfax is that Carla Bruce sees history as an important part of understanding where we are, where we come from. She's actually trying to put together a history timeline that she wants to put online that looks at the history of Fairfax County with regard to the sort of structural bases for inequalities within Fairfax. And so, and I think she's just, she and I had a conversation about it, and I said, that sounds great. Give me a staff person.
Yes, that's kind of
and
the
I think
growth
she,
answer we should have.
and I think she, I mean, it's a fine line because, if you keep telling people no, then they stop coming to you. But I think, we do just need to sort of advocate for ourselves and say that we do need additional staff time. And I mean, and we could potentially, I think it's interesting what Subi suggested about using the clerk to perhaps do some of our tasks. We'd have, and I'm not sure, I know Elliot is a student, and I know that he appreciates the income as a student. So perhaps he would be interested in expanding his duties. I don't know, it's,
Does he have the time to?
but does he have the time? Exactly. And we can't sort of really change that employment, contract on him.
It would have to be separate, a separate arrangement if we
Right.
did it at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I think what I mean is it would have to be mutually agreed on, or we'd have to get, I mean, that, I don't know
I'm
if
not even
writing
sure that we can, because I mean, the way in which we've hired him and the purpose for which we've hired him, I mean, aren't there rules in Fairfax County for those kinds of things? I mean, I don't know that we can hire him for other work.
Right. Yeah. And there's it. I mean, his hiring is very odd. There's all sorts of, it's very exceptional. And there are a whole lot of rules that, Lynn expected, I anticipated, that were not applied to us, that we did not have to meet. And so it is a really ambiguous thing. So perhaps the clearest thing is just to go for, can we get what the ARB has, what the Planning Commission has, where we have, some real staff support rather than just, a little bit of part-time. I mean, I never asked Denise what her specific allocation of time was for us. I don't know if anybody knows what percentage of her time.
And
Um,
I do think she goes way above and beyond, and how much we appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
And I think, in terms of I did not realize, I think that I'm not sure about the single property CHODs. I mean, I like the idea, but that's that involves zoning, and people are often very antagonistic to having, like,
it's not
I
just
think,
zoning, it's ARB oversight. It's really, it's ARB oversight once you're in an HO too.
Yeah. And so, there are sort of multiple moving parts there. I mean, I think it's something that we shouldn't forget about, but perhaps if we're trying to prioritize, I think creating more carrots. We have we don't have very good sticks. So we have a limited supply of we have a limited repertoire of sticks, and they're not necessarily all that effective. Even the ARB has limited efficacy. If you want to demolish the building by neglect, and you're determined to do that, it's kind of, I mean, it depends, I guess. But but it would be nice if we could hand people something other than, like that there'd be ways of encouraging people to rehabilitate and support older structures.
How about, I have an idea for going forward. How about, like I'm really interested, of course, I have to recuse myself because I live in a inventory house, but because I don't care if I never get to take advantage of it, but I think it would be a good tool to have in tax abatement. So how about one way to start would be to assign me, because I'm interested in it and I started to look at and find out everything I can find out about the part I'm interested in. And then Tammy, since you have a possible one that you're interested for a single property HOD, you knuckle down and think about how it would be applied to Mount Aaron, and just, and then we can come up with some facts and figures and then decide, okay, well, I'm willing to meet with a supervisor about this one, which supervisor would be most amenable to it, and let's see if we can make some progress. Is that a possible way to, with regard to the budget, that is more squarely you, Cheryl, and your budget chair and your treasurer, and any of us who can help you figure out the budget process. It may be that Elise knows it quite well. I just don't know.
Well, I mean, this isn't this, I mean, the idea of having staff, I mean, the budget end of it, I think, is it's more the tail than the dog. I think what we need to do is simply have advocates, get the Board of Supervisors to recognize that this is a need that we have.
But we have to have some definable reason that we,
Yes.
how much we need and
Oh,
why.
I see what
we
you're
need
talking
it.
about in terms of getting some basic numbers. This
Yeah,
is
you
what we
can't go
require.
to them and just say, we need more money.
Right.
You have to be very
Well,
specific
yeah,
in why.
Yes. So a
you want to
justification.
show them a real budget and a need. I think one of the drawbacks for the timing right now is we've got to, I forget how much we have left since we gave a big chunk to archaeology.
Yes.
But we still have a pretty full a pot of money, don't we, Barbara?
Yeah, I think
Well,
we do. We have like
I mean,
40,000.
we have money, but there are commitments of some of that money. So it isn't, and in the budget, I mean, we do have a certain amount that's set aside for, marker rehabilitation, new markers. I mean, so it isn't, we have over $40,000.
But we need a lot of it.
But, a lot of it is committed.
Is it? Because I've never been quite clear as to what those. I mean, I know there's a line in the annual report that says that it's committed, but I've never been quite clear what those other than the markers.
Well, I mean, we make promises to the Virginia Room, to archaeology. I mean, so we have ongoing. I mean, we've paid for interns. And some of those are over 3 years. So I mean, there are allotments within that money. Now, Elise is the one who very carefully guards the allocations that are made, and exactly who approves them, I'm not sure all the time, because often Elise hasn't, provided some of that on time. But I mean, while we have money, it isn't all, free to use.
It's somewhat ironic that we are taking our allocations of government funding and passing it on to other government agencies.
I confess I am somewhat astounded by the exact same thing. I mean, I just yesterday I spent my afternoon working the book sale for the George Mason Friends, and you know, the the county has decided to no longer provide space to the friends groups for storage of donations of books. So the regional libraries that throw these great big, you know, sales several times a year are now being told they'll need to go rent their own space. And so some of the friends at George were like, okay, by the time we pay for storage and trucking back and forth, and, you know, and one of them's response was sort of like, and so the next time that Dolly running the libraries puts her hand out, I'll tell her share went to. And so, I mean, there is this just constant county, you know, need, and everybody's scraping the bottom of the barrel to find funding for things. And I'll tell you, I mean, I was appalled with the archaeology thing. I mean, we voted on that to give them that money, but I read the vote as giving that to archaeology. And in point of fact, we gave that to the Friends.
Is that how we did it? We went through.
It is, and the reason
to the foundation, maybe.
No, it was a Friends. Well,
Friends.
maybe it was a foundation group. But
Park Foundation.
But the problem to me is, I mean, the whole reason for that is to bypass county spending regulations for particular items. And I mean, I managed a library for the county. So, I mean, I had a friends group. I know how that works. And I know what the limitations and the regulations and the hoops that you have to jump through to spend any money. But we spend, whether it's friends groups, foundations, you know, committees, you know, departments within this county, we spend a lot of time shuffling around trying to fund things. And I think we fail to tell people in this county that all the perks and the things that they are getting cost money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes they should just face facts and raise the taxes and pay for it instead of pushing this off on, you know, other committees and foundations and friends.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to necessarily, you know, doubt. I wasn't. I mean, I think that I know, you know, what as you say, I know what those hurdles are that you know Liz faces with regard to getting equipment.
But it
you know,
should have been clear when she made that. She should not have made that presentation. The organization that was requesting the money should have. But when I went back, because I have to have something in writing from them, and when I got it, it was the foundation, I guess.
Friends of Fairfax Archaeology, is that what it was? FOFA?
I was, yeah, I can't remember. But
well, there's also something called the Park Foundation, and sometimes when and the Park Foundation, for its own reasons, likes to have the monies go through them if it's a donation.
Because you can spend it differently than you can if it
and the conference goes through them too, doesn't it? Doesn't the conference?
Yes,
do we work with the conference?
Lynn couldn't have flowers, you know, on the stage or, you know, on the tables, or, I mean, there are all sorts of things that are not legal expenditures. And so, you know, and also we as a commission can't collect money. So we have to have someone that can be the recipient of the people who are paying for the registrations.
But so that's Park Authority.
So it goes through the park. No, that goes through the Park Authority, but the Park Authority has a little more flexibility than we do in terms of what we are allowed to spend money on. So if I put it through my financial contact in the county, you know, they would go, you know, we're not paying for this, we're not paying for that. And where if I put it through the park funding, you know, but it's, so they collect our money for our conference and they pay our bills. Now, when money is voted upon, I move it from, you know, my county history commission account into the park authority account so that I can cover bills,
Yeah.
through this. But all of the money that comes in, yeah, I mean, becoming treasurer of this organization was a real eye opener. I have to tell you. But when we gave $5,000 to an organization that we had not voted on and had never heard of, at our meetings, I was a little like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, it was earmarked for archaeology. It did get
It
to her.
was. And the
yeah,
bills were for the things they wanted, but I was like, oh, this is not how it got presented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
is-
I think she did not know how it was going to work out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's maybe in the future we can try to pin that down beforehand, because it wasn't like some big deadline. So I
Yeah.
think we're really we're
veering off topic here.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I think where we were heading before these juicy stories was to try to figure out how much money is available for that isn't earmarked that we have, and how much more we need to do what we want to do. One of
but
our
we have to define what it is we want to do.
yeah, one of our constant issues we run into all the time and are always trying to get put in proffers is to put more buildings on the inventory. Well, we can either use volunteer help and never get it done, or we can start paying people for anything that doesn't have a nice developer sitting there ready to pay. Maybe we want to make inventory. I mean, there really are some priorities that we could make for ourselves or add to what we already do. We already do markers. We already do, we do a lot of good stuff, but poor inventory is completely reactionary. We don't do anything unless somebody comes to us and gives us a nomination. And we could kickstart, we could spend money on interns or.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that interns.
I mean, like if a developer puts it through in a proffer, they're going to spend, I don't know, $7,500 or $10,000 for a company. All the companies you've heard of, Ottery and various ones, they all provide this. They can do nominations for us, and they do a nice job sometimes. So we could either earmark money for that or work with students or something. But that's just, I bet you we could make a long list of other ways to spend our money than we do. So maybe that's another advocacy role, is to look hard, or we can help with that. I don't know. It's kind of bigger than us. But if we could help go through and think about priorities and then make that part of the process for trying to get more budget authority. Because we are just perking along with our $22,000 a year for years and years and years. And we fit into that rather than asking for more, because we do. You're right, Susie, from the very beginning. You said, you guys are just like living with this without having bigger ideas.
Right.
So I think that's the budget is another big step. So
yeah, I can make some inquiries and find out, what the staffing is like for like, say, the ARB, and
who
maybe,
knows this stuff is Denise.
I was going to say Denise knows, especially since she's stepping into that role.
Yeah.
I know that we are slated, to have that her position is going to be a higher level position, so that the person who comes in replacing her, who will it would be our liaison, will be a higher paid person, and somebody with more experience, and but I don't, but I can, I can check with Denise, and perhaps maybe ask her boss, what is the what is the staffing? How is the staffing handled for I think, the Architectural Review Board might be the closest, comparable, and at least a place to start.
There are so many BACs, I bet you, I mean, they're just scores of them, so it would
there
be
were 85.
definitely scores. So I mean, each of us, if we have wherever we have friends and contacts in the county who are with, and I mean, I know quite a few because you go to those thank you breakfasts that your supervisor gives once a year. So you meet your tree commission equivalent, and you meet your low income
Water.
housing equivalent, your animal shelter equivalent. So so we can maybe all of us sort of start thinking, just look into how other organizations work. I mean, it's just on the side, and but I think it would be helpful to know where we stand a little bit.
Okay, so that's one homework assignment, and that's due at our next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, let's have a next meeting. Let's do that before we even forget. You want to do one can we stand to do one in November? We're coming up to Thanksgiving, so we don't want to go too late. Would it be too soon to meet let's look, in I would propose either mid-November, but that's only going to be 3 weeks, or early December. What do you think?
What's our assignment?
Well, we're developing them. One is to just get our feelers out for how staff and liaisons work. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
think
think some people are probably not even aware of which one they have. It took me a while to understand the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that a lot of BACs may not have any real. I mean, they may have a liaison that just keeps them informed of things, but
You know
otherwise.
what? I'll ask Supervisor Alcorn has a person, like they probably all do, who is the BAC person. So that would be somebody else just to chat with informally to say, what do you know about how this works?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Would you consider the December meeting of this group is December of the commission is December 1st. Could we meet the week of the next week of that? It would be then sort of like 6 weeks from now. So
like the 9th of December?
yeah, can you do Thursdays? I could. Can you look at calendars and think? I mean, we'll develop an agenda as we're finishing up this. Because what time is it? 8:27. So if we set a meeting, let's have an agenda and do our homework assignments for that. Would that be okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
So
that's good.
I'm going to go ahead and call it the 9th.
Okay.
All right, good. So, oh, that's good. We actually did something we said we were going to do. Add. So in terms of homework assignments, I think it would be good if Tammy reports on. Oh, and we have the whole list of the news flash. So Tammy, you keep an eye on Mount Aaron and see what you think, and if there's a role for us, is there anything that we do to make that process go better? I will ask Gretchen to tell me what she thinks about tax incentive program for rehab, and I'll write that up, a little paragraph for what my understanding of that program is for you to review. And if it's okay, I'll make my list of tax abatement programs that you could look at online, so you can just see if you think that's a real one. I think Cheryl will follow up on budget.
Budget,
and
yep,
report.
and staffing. And
Yeah.
what?
Annual report and staff.
Annual report.
Okay, so that's
So
some of
just one other thing that we talked about. Were we going to finish up the last 2 years' annual reports by December? And if then, what action needs to happen?
I think it will be tough to do by December, but it shouldn't be tough if we can. I'm happy to volunteer to work closely with Elise, and she lives close to me. If I don't know if that much matters, to knuckle down and get a 2019, 2020. And if it doesn't happen by December 1st, what are next steps?
So the 2019, I believe, was almost done at the time COVID was kind of crashing down on us. It was late, but I feel like it was almost done. People, I think, had turned in their biographies,
Mostly,
I think all of that stuff. So that part might be just sort of a sweeping up. So that's a really good thing to check on, is just kind of, what state is 2019 in? Because if that's almost done, you don't have to combine them. You can just ship that one off.
Yeah.
But 2020, I do not think there's even a start on that one. So
I think you're probably right.
they're boilerplate. So I don't know. I mean, we've got the minutes of, what happened. We have recordings, which honestly might help us in remembering what the heck happened in 2020. Because that's part of the problem, is that you get to the end and you go, what did we do this year? Well, we've got recordings of what we did. So
that's also where the minutes just, it's so much quicker just to review them than sit through 3 hours 12 times.
Yeah. But if you have questions about what was that, like what the heck was that thing? So I think it's doable by December. If it slips and it doesn't happen till January, at least you're working on it. At least you're trying to get it done by December. If you don't put a date on it, if you don't put a deadline on it, then you have no hope of getting it done.
Absolutely. And December is 2 months from now.
Yeah.
So that's
it's 1 month.
November and December.
But,
You're giving all of December.
Doing December 1st.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I
you're
see.
saying end of the year?
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking end of the year.
Let's do it.
Right.
We can do
I think we can do it.
30th, 31st.
Yeah. And if you need help, like, if you're going to check in with Elise and kind of see how things are going or whatever, ask for help. Like, it shouldn't necessarily all fall on one person to do it. I mean,
I'll try that.
we can divide up. There's the section for biographies. There's the section for, there's different sections we can assist.
Yes.
Yeah, even if it starts off being proofing and then gets to be more than that, that would be very helpful.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
But usually it's just done by one person and one proofer, and it's kind of it's a burden. Okay, so that's good. Whereas at the moment, we're serving as support, not brilliance for advocacy. I mean, for the annual report, but we know in our minds we want to start shaking up the annual report and making it better. Now,
so are we going to present this as something the committee wants in terms of changing our annual report format, or are we just going to sort of grab the responsibility?
Let's think about it we'll come back in December. That can be on the agenda for December, is kind of think about what would a new style annual report look like.
Okay.
And maybe, there's nothing stopping us in between meetings. If you see an annual report that you think would adapt itself really nicely to our topic.
I read them all the time.
I mean, you at least flip through, yes, but I love the idea of doing it. And then, we can defer to Cheryl. She needs the annual report she wants too. And And I don't know how much you want to make a change in how it's produced.
Annual reports are the kinds of things that I like never pay attention to. So
Yeah. Now,
we,
that
we have management reports, we have business reports, we do interpretive reports. We do, a lot of people spend a lot of time producing reports,
Yeah.
and they all tend to stay on the shelf, and people go, oh wait, we actually have an inventory, a interpretive plan, don't we? We should take a look at that and figure out what it was we were planning on doing.
Well, I'll tell you, like, what got me thinking about it was I think I got a postcard in the mail, and it probably was from Supervisor Stork. And it was literally, I mean, it was a little bit bigger. It was like maybe a 5x7. And it was basically, here's what our office did this year. And it was maybe there were some stripes on there to divide up, like color blocks to
So we
divide
can
up.
do 3x5. We don't
was-
need a 5x7.
It was literally like a 5x7. It was like, here's what I did this year. Like, here is my summary. And that, to me, that's what's in my mind, because everybody can look at a 5x7 and go, oh yeah, they do that. I remember now the History Commission, does have a conference, I think that's really what I'm looking toward.
Yeah, I think that's good. I didn't mean to suggest that, they aren't worthwhile. I mean, I think that we do need to make those statements and make it clear what we do. And, like Blake's comment, I mean, I appreciate that you saw it as this sort of like, hey, this is something that we need. But I was like, hey, dude, do you know what we were actually doing?
Oh, I was on that page last year as we were getting a lot of unkind remarks about the inventory, the Confederate names inventory. But I've mellowed. So really, the annual report could end up being a compilation of the monthly news flashes.
Yes.
Let's go back to monthly news flashes. That's pretty exciting. Would all of the ones, would we each be in charge of sending them to our own? Yes, maybe sending them to our own.
I would send it out as a collective thing to the entire board.
Yeah, I think it could sort of come almost after the minutes are developed, or hand in hand with the minutes. Like, you take the minutes and you're like, okay, what are the top? I mean, I pulled those off the top of my head, the examples that I put on there, like what we did out of the last meeting. And I think you could have one that went out, and maybe it's even the clerk's job, or our liaison's job to send that. What are our top 5 things that we did during our meeting, and boom, those go out automatically to each supervisor and their staff.
Yeah. Those reports that we get every month, from our staff members, that's their monthly highlights.
Yes.
It'd be like that.
In the Park Authority, we have to send in monthly highlights.
Yeah, we do that in the library
month.
too. Yeah.
What we do.
Yeah, and this is basically giving the supervisor our monthly highlights, and maybe they'll pick some of that up and go, oh yeah, like, that's one of ours too.
One of the things that at the beginning of this conversation that attracted me, but I might have been wrestling the dog or my charger, was somebody said something about, and then each of us would add what we had done during the month. So that would be like, I would send a copy of this news flash.
Yeah, 4 bullets.
And my cover sheet would say, hi, Walter, this is what we did as a group, but I found that I was working on this, and this month.
Right.
I mean, as long as it stays short and bullet points and there's no long sentences.
Right.
I think they might get something out, and maybe even some graphics.
And if they have a question, maybe there's a picture in there,
I have an issue with that. I have an issue with that. My issue is that we are so information overload. We can't even produce an annual report, which is necessary and required. And we are adding more work on ourselves. And so how many commissioners do we have? 22, 23?
So 23? 21. No, 21? 20, I think, 20.
Okay, 20 times 3 bullets, that's 60 bullets going out how often? Every month?
Yeah,
I
that's why I
don't
was
This is
saying
just
it should be
this
a
is just
single.
going to your supervisor. Like to me, and even like we have three Mount Vernon district representatives. I don't know that all three of us need to send in, a
Right.
separate thing. Really, just you need one Mount Vernon district report. And so Sally and Annie and I can say, what have you been working on? What have I been working on? Together, all together, we maybe have 2 or 3 bullets to
Some
send.
months
So,
might,
so
some
what's
months
the
might
point?
have nothing.
Yeah.
And
So
some
what?
of us only have one person for their district.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and also, what's the point of dividing the commission into what? How many districts we have? And why
9.
not unifying our results, which then seem more impactful, and then send out one to the board?
We
All
could,
of
and
them,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's very reasonable. Yeah.
I think the way I read it and the way when you were talking about basing it on the minutes
Yeah.
is you do this one piece that does your 3 to 4 hottest topics. And if any one of us in dealing with our supervisor wants to add a similar cover sheet or something where we are like I would only write what Barbara, Elise, and I wanted to write, if anything, that
If
month.
anything. Yeah.
I mean, what I like about this idea, Subi, is that one, I have to get monthly news flash. I like how you call it that. One
Yeah.
monthly news flash is created, and
But
then we use,
distributed by different people.
yeah, and so the least work it would take would be for me, for whoever does it, to send it to everybody. Barbara would take hers and say, yeah, I didn't do much this month, and just send it straight to Penny to say, oh, here's
Right.
our thing. Whereas the next month, Barbara might say, oh, I'm really looking into this house and this property, and I worked on that, so maybe I'll put a couple bullet points when I send it to Penny. I don't think that makes it too much work because you could choose it to make no extra work. The hard part's just creating the news flash itself.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. And I'll take a stab at doing something colorful with, maybe these bullets on there and send it to you guys and just see what you think. I'll try to put the History Commission seal on it or something. As much as possible to almost make it look like the way the front page of when the supervisors send us their monthly
Mhm.
notes, like just to make it look like that. But theirs, of course, goes on forever underneath there. This is almost going to look like one PowerPoint slide in my mind.
So let me
That's-
let me ask this. So this committee used to do the monthly newsletter?
There was
There
never any monthly newsletter.
Okay. So this will be a new thing for us.
Mhm.
I would
Okay.
think,
So
looking at,
my question is, or not my question, my caution is, it goes to human resources, whether it happens or not happens. So
Mhm.
just keep that in mind, that whoever is being tagged to do it really does it, because if we start and stop, it just doesn't look good.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why, we won't jump into it. We'll kind of, look at it and decide, is this really something we're going to do? Is this something we're going to commit resources to every single month, and stick to it or not?
right,
I mean,
because
other option may be to do it quarterly.
Mhm.
But
Sure.
anyway,
Yeah.
Sure. That's reasonable.
Or bi-monthly.
Mm-hmm.
yes, so we'll look at some proposals for that. The other things on Tammy's agenda were press releases, so we should understand what our rules are for press
Yeah.
release.
I
We
have no
probably
idea.
We may
Pretty
Yeah,
much
have,
press
in
releases.
history.
Press releases get. I'm not sure. Press releases get us into some interesting waters.
Yes.
Uh,
can we just tackle what we have talked about so far
Yeah.
and not
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
overstretch ourselves? Because I think there's There was one thing that was critical on the agenda that we haven't talked about, and I really don't want us to go beyond 2 hours, was Cheryl's legacy items.
Well, we have discussed that in part, Subi, and as much as I think I would love to have created something that is a carrot. If we can get either the rehabilitation tax credit or tax abatement or some sort of combination, something like that, that actually encourages people, that rewards them for taking on historic structures, I think that that's a big step forward. So that's one of them. The other, sort of legacy, and I didn't, I mean, I see my role as chair is largely facilitative. I mean, I think that that's, what we expect, from the chair in this commission. So I just try and make sure that I try and just get things moving. Try and keep those meetings within reason, although that's a little bit challenging. But the other thing that I think is important and for us, and one that we were already engaged in, is being an advocate for and expanding the scope of our history to to be more inclusive in our historical outlook, and to embrace, to recognize that a whole century has gone by, that is now in the past, which still kind of stuns me. I can't believe that we are this far into the 21st century. But that makes the 20th century, even though it's my lifetime, is now becoming historical. That we have to, embrace that, and attend to that, and that includes, that includes a number of different things. It includes the oral history projects that we're talking about. It also includes the rest in the inventory. So I think the idea of hiring people to, particularly to focus on some of the 20th century buildings, in Reston, to get those onto the inventory as a first, kind of priority issue. And I think that is something that we could, not have to rely on full-time paid staff for, but could, develop like an internship program for. I think that would be good training for somebody interested in historic in historic conservation. And we do have Marymount University, Mary Washington, and other universities in the area with students like that. And it can be a paid internship. I mean, that could be part of our budget request. So that, and then the other thing would be, what we are doing already, engaged in terms of expanding our African American history. We're really, I think, making significant progress on that. Not that there isn't more that could be done, but we're working on that. So that would be, those are the things that I think are important.
So I think I just heard maybe 3 or 4. So the African American, I think, is just from my very limited understanding, is kind of under control, and it's moving forward. The conservation of historical buildings, I don't know which committee. How are you going to test these things?
So the inventory committee handles the inventory, and we have discussed creating a new inventory status, and which was to particularly with regard to, so we have, the Reston is in the process of developing and redeveloping, and so that's one reason why I mentioned it as a priority, not because it's necessarily, well, actually, it is an area where you have some interesting and conscious 20th century architecture, but so that the inventory committee was working on trying to develop a rubric under which we could include a lot of Reston buildings, if I'm correct, and I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember.
we're doing that multiple property
Multiple
documentation.
properties, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Barbara Nate
and,
and I on that.
but we still, you still need somebody to sit down and document the history of these different buildings, and we can do clusters. I mean, because in Reston you're going to have like an entire, these small subdivisions, that would qualify, and that's how you get the multiple property, designation. But you still have to sit down, do the research, document, and demonstrate the significance of the property. And so if we can hire interns to do that, that would be because I know that, and I know that ARB is interested in this as well. So perhaps it can be some sort of joint project between ARB and the History Commission, and the specific committee that's responsible would be the Inventory Committee.
Mhm. And how about the tax abatement issue? Is it the advocacy group?
So yeah, at the moment, advocacy is about the only one. I was just, when I was flipping through the bylaws, I probably have underutilized our executive committee, but I think that makes sense as a thing for the advocacy committee to take on. And then African American, we have the AAHI committee functioning and working actively. We also have the oral history committee has been far more engaged than it has been in the past, and we're sort of hopefully actually we'll put some of those ideas into action. And that's our next step, I think. Our next challenge for that committee is actually getting outside of the committee bubble.
Yeah, because right now it's such a focus on the board of supervisors, which is fine, but a lot of them are pretty well documented anyway. So it's kind of missing its original point of ethnic history.
Yeah. And we've been talking about reaching out and starting those into the community. Oh, and actually, in terms of you brought up an issue earlier with which in the context of intergovernment relationships, where we've kind of done this with a lot of agencies, where they're like, oh, here's neighborhood community services, we're really excited about the James Lee marker thing, but they didn't engage us on it, or didn't realize that we were engaged in it and we should be talking to one another. Oral history is
same meetings.
Hmm?
That's what's so weird. They went to how many meetings with you, Barbara?
Oh, they did.
They know.
Oh, yes.
We were
I
no
worked with
these
them. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, they
Okay, I
knew. I
misunderstood.
mean, they just failed to acknowledge. But I think the the invitation and the supervisor's office just kind of blew right past it.
Oops. Oh, all right.
Strange.
But neighborhood, we've been talking to the folks at Neighborhood Community Services, and they have the facilities to do some amazing oral history work. And so, and we should definitely partner with them and make use of that.
I love that. Well, that's a very good list. Thank you for asking for that, Subi. Because we can put off some of this other stuff for another time. But that's the crux of why your poor Cheryl showed up today. We love you coming. Thank you.
Other than that, we love her.
It's good to be loved.
So I'm willing. We've got another 7 minutes before we completely turn into pumpkins. So if there's some follow-up anybody'd like to do, otherwise I think we've got a few assignments here. Some of it's just general thinking. Why don't I try to get these minutes or bullet points out sooner than normal, because I'm always late with minutes, and so we can really highlight
Yeah.
the things we want to move forward on, because you can't move forward on everything. But if we can get some things moved off of square one into somebody else's hands, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So whose head is spinning? Anybody else's? Every time we do Advocacy and brainstorm, my head is just, ready to burst, which is a good thing, I think.
That's
Because
good.
we got a million good ideas. All right. So
That's
Denise and Grace, we're about to wrap up. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. And we'll see you guys next week at the commission meeting, and then that second week in December at this meeting again. Oh, we've got to do our potluck somehow, or our fake
Yeah,
potluck.
I was going to bring that up at the meeting on Wednesday.
Are we going to do the meeting on Wednesday using this platform instead of WebEx?
I think so.
Yes.
That was my expectation.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Excellent.
But we're still going to have, we're still going to be, are we still going to be virtual for December?
Well, that's the question. I think we could potentially, if we wanted to, because there are other committees. I mean, the Board of Supervisors is meeting in person. The task force on Confederate names has been meeting in person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we have rules in place where we can have people dial in, and there's actually a really cool room in the government center that has all these cool cameras and screens and things set up just for these kind of hybrid meetings. If we wanted to conduct that, I don't know that we can get that room, but it's a really cool room. But we can, so we could potentially meet in person if we wanted to. But I don't know if people are ready for that yet.
Every time I think I'm close to ready, some other part of the world, like, today's report, I was looking at a trip to Russia.
Mhm.
We decided, this week not to make the trip. And then, of course, today, they are in lockdown. The numbers of deaths are highest that they've ever recorded. And of course,
Really?
everyone
Wow.
knows that they're reporting a third of the numbers, the real numbers. So, it's just like this disease just keeps coming back to
Haunt us.
knock
Yeah, I
somebody
know.
down.
Yeah.
And so my confidence, of going places and going out, is continually undermined.
Right. And December's probably not the right time to break the seal on all of that, like when we all want to be safe for family Christmas.
The holidays.
So,
That's true. So
That's a
if
very good point, actually. Yeah.
let's assume we're going to be, let's assume that December 1 will be a virtual. Let's start like a half hour early and just have a chit chat if you can
Bring our
stand it.
dinner with us.
Or your
We can do
wine.
that, sure.
Because it just, I'll do the trivia if the conversation lags.
Okay.
there you go. Good plan. All right, we have 30
Thank you.
seconds to end before.
We're adjourned, and it is, oh, look, 3 more minutes. Bye, everybody. It's only twice as long as I hoped it would be. But we always have a lot to talk about. It's not my fault.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All righty. Thank you. It's been great.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.